0800 yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Khalid here with another episode of Whatever In It.
Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever in it?
I guess from the title, you know what this is about. Never in a million years, post a previous episode, did I think the conversation would shift so quickly and dramatically. We've gone from the normality around getting ready and comfortable to return to work to talking about the public execution of black people by police. White people have finally had some sort of mass awakening to the issues that have affected black people since as far back as is conceivable. In part, this may be inspired by the speaking out of corporations and brands, adding their support for the cause openly, quoting MLK at every opportunity. No offense to you, Uncle Martin, however, I feel like you're their poster child for reasons of non-violence and, as much as I wouldn't use the word pacifism, it's as if they mention you because you were about non-violence. However, what they don't realise is that you also were about hitting their pockets through boycotts too. It's ironic that through this conversation and throughout the commentary of the calls for non-violent protests, they fail to mention the fact that the dominant society assassinated the person they hold in such high esteem as non-violent. Which goes to show that it doesn't matter whether you're passive and choose to fight back. If you're saying something that gives others hope, they'll get you. I could list a plethora of cases where the FBI and CIA were sent in to infiltrate and destabilize black liberation and other organizations that threaten the power structure of the dominant society or global policy. But that's only a miniature part of the story. Black lives are spread across the globe far and wide, as if we were the punished folk of old. We don't share a common language, culture or goals. After generations of attempts to liberate ourselves, are we even close? We share a collective rage when we see these public executions. We march, shout and share. When there's never a conviction, no justice, no peace is what we scream. These men don't care about democracy. These men don't care about freedom. They only care about control. They only care about self-preservation. It's survival. Whether it's infiltrators in Garvey's UNIA or Black Star Line, whether it was infiltration within the Black Panther Party and Nation of Islam, assassination attempts on Castro, successful execution attempts on Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Che Guevara, Fred Hampton and a host of others through foreign collusion, I wonder if group economics is the solution. In the book I, Marcus Garvey, a first-person account of his life and times, Garvey details his travels throughout South and Central America, the West Indies and Europe, all to find out if the injustice to blacks was elsewhere. To no surprise, he found it abroad on his travels. He would ask himself, where's the black man's government? Where is the king and his kingdom? Where is his president, his country and his ambassador, his army, his navy, his men of big affairs? He couldn't find them, and then declared, I would help make them. Garvey became restless for the opportunity of doing something for the advancement of his race. He was determined that the black man would not continue to be kicked about by other races and nations of the world, as he saw in the places he travelled. Think about it like this. That was 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Let me just break whatever script I've prepared and I'm reading and say that was 100 years ago. Same thing happening today. So after a culmination of the aforementioned and reading up about the conditions affecting the black man in North America from Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery, Garvey's young and ambitious mind led him to leave London for Jamaica, where he established the UNIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association. If you're familiar with the life of Che Guevara, there are so many parallels in their stories of travelling which inspired them to change the world. It's far from coincidental. Travelling unlocks the mind. How many of us travel and put life into perspective as we experience and observe an alternative way of life? There's something spiritual about travel. Taking you out of your way of life creates reflection. Disconnecting allows you to be free. In a way, you see what life is really like. You experience other cultures, you encounter customs, you appreciate humanity much more as a result. Funnily enough, I don't actually know where I'm going with this. I started out trying to address current events. Well, not so current if you're black, it's all day every day, innit? I'll admit that I was in a much different place at the start of my script in comparison to where I am today. I realised that there's never a right time for anything except the present. So if, for example, there's been racism, whether in political or ideological movements, predating and during our lifetimes, for as long as our parents, grandparents and great-grandparents have lived in Britain, they've always been subject to all forms of racism. It could have been the race riots, the Teddy Boys, the many nationalist and political parties, Combat 18, the National Front and the BNP, UKIP, EDL, to everyone known or unknown in between. Racist rhetoric and violence has been a cornerstone of this country, whether systemic, covert or microaggressively. The question is, did you make the choice not to acknowledge or unsee? Did you choose to overlook the details of what you now see previously? Who dumped a truckload of red pill into the global water supply? Who is responsible for this miracle of sight, sound and feeling? I question whether this train of change is about to lose steam as people get distracted by other things. I admit, I wrote So I Know It's Real as more receipt to express my concerns about this mass awakening. So to close out, I'm going to play the poem I wrote. Until next time, stay tuned, stay safe, stay active, stay on the path to create a better tomorrow. Peace. Share some Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey and revolutionary quotes so I know it's real. Engage in dialogue and research to understand so I know the deal. Is this a fad or fairy tale for you? Are you for genuine change or is it a follow fashion thing? I don't know if all this attention is real. When the glitz and glamour fades, when the memes stop, when the narrative shifts to the next thing, when our fight for liberty goes back to being muted, when injustices we face are invisible under the spotlight, when everyone forgets, will you still have the same energy? 500 years of oppression and exploitation created the privilege you weren't even aware of until recently. My ancestors were exploited and forced to work for free. My ancestral lands were stolen alongside my ancestral culture, customs, spirituality and names. Whilst yours got rich, we were oppressed. Now do you see how far you've got ahead? You can tell me it's real, but do you know it's real? You can respond with what sounds like you know the deal. You can share the resources and talk a great deal, but when there's no spotlight and the world is no longer stood still, will you still have the same energy or a deafening silence whilst oppressed peoples are killed? Let me know if it's real.
Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever innit? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? Yo fam, what's good, what's poppin'? 0800 yo fam, whatever innit?